So these are notes on how to complete a child's plan for parents who may not know what to expect at a child's plan meeting or who may wish to redirect the child's plan meeting. So the child's name, the highlighted parts explain things. So the child's name will appear here. And in this first section, like it says here, the plan should be circulated to partners to the plan at least 2 weeks prior to any review. So partners to the plan are all professionals who will attend the meeting and parents who will attend the meeting or who are unable to attend the meeting. The parent should still get a copy of this child's plan 2 weeks prior to any review meeting. So a new child's plan, you wouldn't get the document, but prior to a review meeting, you would get the document so that you were prepared for the next one. So here they would say the sections that they've filled in. So all about the child, this one here, the chronology, the assessment, the action plan, and then the coordinated support plan is very rarely used. Okay, so it's usually the first 4 that are used in a standard child's plan. So they would say whether this is a draft, a final document, explain what each of these are later on, like what the final document would be. So the date of the plan, that would be the initial plan, the date of the next review, the date of any previous plan, and the date of the last review, so the previous review. Okay, so this is our current one. The next review, so you need to agree when it will be reviewed again. Any previous plan that was put in place and the date of the last review. And here it's just the child's details. Now, ASN level is also known now as the continuum of support level, and this is something that can be reviewed at each meeting. So if your child is, for instance, a level 2, but they're unable to attend school very often without one-to-one support and such likes, and you think that the level that they're at, the continuum of support or ASN level, is inaccurate for where your child now is, then that can be part of the review here. It doesn't have to be based on the historical level of ASN or continuum of support level. So again, they'll just talk about your child here. And the important parts in here are that the lead professional and the named person are in place. So this will either be health or education and the lead professional. So there might also be a coordinated support plan coordinator if there is a coordinated support plan in place, but that rarely is the case. So who is calling the meeting and filling in the things, and which agency? Is it education or is it health? So is your health visitor who's in charge, or is this child now in education? Okay, the lead professional can also be a social worker. So statutory measures are all about, so you can have a social work supervision order, that's a statutory order that's in place, or there can be legal statutory orders in place with the family if there's any protection orders or any other type of legal order. So is there an order in place? If no, then nothing goes in here. If yes, then they have to say the type of order that is in place and perhaps why it got put in place. Why does the child need a plan? So this is GIRFEC. So these are the GIRFEC indicators, and you can find them just by Googling GIRFEC. And it's to do with, is the child safe? Now it's to do with, so a child's plan can be put in place because of situations within the home, situations within the community, or situations within school, or a mixture of these. So it's not necessarily do they feel safe at school, it can be do they feel safe in the community, at home, are they healthy at school and the community, at home and in school, are they achieving in all 3 areas of their life, are they nurtured in all 3, active. So you're looking at the wider picture, yeah, so these boxes should be ticked and a little summary for any boxes that are ticked should be given below. And if it's done well, it'll have the heading of the area, the GIRFEC indicator that it's corresponding to, and they'll have the information in there. The next part is just to capture who's living at home. Now, this can change between plans because sometimes there'll be a sibling who leaves the home, sometimes there'll be a parent who leaves the home. They're still a significant family member, so they would be down here somewhere. But if they've left the home, then they would no longer be in this part. So again, you indicate who has parental rights in their relationship to the child. Okay, so who all lives at home and who's significant people in their life who don't live at home. So you have the right to consent to the whole plan being shared. Okay, so would you, now the young person should consent wherever possible, and the parent consents, yeah? So consenting is wider sharing is, for instance, you might share this document with an educational psychologist. You might choose to share the document with the school. You might choose to allow sharing, so the school can share the document with the educational psychologist or the NDAS team if your child is awaiting assessment, for instance, or if social workers get involved at any point, the social work team, or if your child gets referred for counselling, the counsellor. If you're working with an organisation like Thriving Families, then perhaps the document shared with us. So it's just, are you consenting, and wider sharing. So the child is very important here as well as the parent. Is it okay to share the document? And it should be noted here whether both or either agree or disagree with the sharing of the document. You can say yes, you're happy for it to be shared. You can say that you're happy for it to be shared with your permission on each sharing of the document. So it doesn't have to be a blanket yes or no. Okay, or you can say that you only want certain parts of the document to be shared as well. So you're entirely, you and the child or young person are entirely in control of this. Again, in here, is there any way that we can help? Is there any hearing difficulties, any processing difficulties? Is there some way that we can make the communication more accessible for the child and parent to be able to attend meetings? So sometimes the child, if they are neurodivergent, for instance, might not wish to attend the meeting, but may have thoughts that they want to be put across. That can be done via an advocate coming in and speaking on their behalf because the advocate has agreed in a prior meeting with the child or young person what they would like to say, or it can be done by another person attending the meeting, like the parent or someone else representing the child, with the child's views written down to be communicated during the meeting. So there's lots of different things this can mean, and it's just to try and ensure that if there's a communication barrier of any kind, that need is met ahead of the meeting. Okay. So the chronology. So a child's plan here should say that here's the example, so this is when it was opened, this is when this happened. If there was an incident in school, the date of the incident should be recorded and what the incident was briefly, not a string of emails in here between people. This should only be really essential information about the child and the child's life. Yeah, so there shouldn't be long pieces of information. There should be no opinions put in here. It should be a factual, chronological, so in date order, view, quick way to note events and issues that have arisen for the child within their life and in their surrounding life. So again, if there's a family bereavement and stuff like this, it's all of that information should be in here if it's been captured by whoever is holding or hosting the plan. What you can do if there are things missing is you can bring them along to the meeting. You can advise them ahead of the meeting because you should have seen the document ahead of it, and ask that these things are updated and added into the plan. Again, not opinion based, but factual based things that are actually, that are going to be significant in the child's life and in preparing support around the child. So that's what should be recorded here. So, who has contributed to the assessment and the action plan? So the example is this child's plan has been compiled through consultation with the family and through liaising with partners to the plan and education staff at whatever establishment. All comments and assessments have been submitted by reflecting on and the use of the My Word Triangle assessment tool. So who has contributed to the assessment and action plan and how? So who is all involved in the things that come below here? So the child should definitely be mentioned. The parents should be mentioned. Any other professionals, you don't have to be mentioned. There's a place for recording everyone who attends the meeting. But this is just the people. So sometimes you contribute and you're not in the meeting. Yeah? Like the child may have already contributed. The child should have gone through the My World Triangle with a staff member ahead of this meeting taking place anyway. Any other specialists who are involved, so again, maybe NDAS and different things that have gone on there, it's pretty self-explanatory, that part. It gives you lots of examples in here as well. Now, the My World Triangle is, again, part of Getting It Right for Every Child, part of GIRFIC. And like they say, the whole child or young person's social, physical, educational, emotional, spiritual and psychological development is looked at here. So looked at for their wider world, looked at for the people who look after them. So that's the people at home, the people in any establishments that they're part of, whether it's nursery, school, anything like that at all. So the people who are responsible for them. So, and here are the kinds of questions they should be being asked around that. So someone should be doing this, a professional should be doing this with the child ahead of the meeting, if the child will work with a professional, and if not, then this has to be explained really well to a family member, but it should be done ahead of the meeting with a professional. So the strengths from the My World Triangle, which are all these different areas here, and the pressures are also recorded further down. So the pressures, so again, identified ahead of the meeting in consultation with the child based on their perceived strengths, should be reflective of the child's needs and not the school's determination. So this is where the child decides. They're not coerced into saying anything, and it's not the school's views here. So we're capturing the child's perspective on their own capabilities and needs, in school, at home, and in their wider community. And again, the same thing about their pressure. So what is it that they're struggling with? And this is really their chance to put across their needs in relation to all these things, or things that aren't mentioned within here. So it doesn't have to solely relate to the My World Triangle as well. Okay. So then the analysis of these strengths and pressures is where professionals discuss this, and this is what happens at the child's plan meeting. The professionals discuss this, add in their perspective on the different strengths and pressures. This forms the discussion on understanding and determining relevant and realistic support for the needs that have been expressed, and stating objectives of the child, okay, or for the child. The analysis should involve everyone attending the meeting and should include all areas of the child's life, not just the school setting. So everyone is involved in this, in discussing how we analysing these, how we move forward, how we support, how we remove the pressures, how we promote the strengths and continue to work with those in finding our way forward. And in doing that, we should come up with, and in discussing all of these, there should be an action plan. So there'll be an old plan. So this will be any previous interventions that have been put in place. Who has been putting those interventions? So this is what the intervention is. Who has put it in place? So who's taking it forward? Is it something to do with home? Is it the parent or the carer? Is it something to do with school? So is it an ASN teacher? Is it a nursery member of staff? Is it a health visitor? And what is the outcome? So this is the most important part, because it gives an indication of what is working and what is not working for the child. So is it successful? So you can mark it with a big S, a continuing, a big CO, or a completed COM. Yeah, so is it continuing, successful, or completed? So some things will continue because it's not because the strategy or the intervention's wrong. It's just because there's an ongoing need for this for the child. And other things should be seen as successful and completed. So yeah, review of the previous actions and then agreeing on what is going to go forward here. So with each child's plan meeting, there's usually agreed actions from this plan based on this discussion that happened, based on the things from the My World Triangle that the young person has highlighted. Okay, so following that discussion, what are the targeted objectives from the discussion around the strengths and pressures? What are the objectives? What are the desired outcomes for this young person? How are these going to be met? Like, we need to make it measurable. We need to make it realistic. It can't just be pie in the sky things. And who is going to oversee this? So somebody has to take ownership so that there's accountability in here. And it shouldn't always just be their family or carer. So it shouldn't be the carer and the parent all the time. So it should be a wider view and a wider picture of everyone contributing. And how and when should this be done? So a reasonable time frame for a strategy, and not just not putting a time frame on it, and not bringing it for review. So if child's plans are reviewed every 6 months, as they should be at the very, very minimum, then surely within this time, or are they suggesting that it's going to take longer? And how are we going to look at that? When are we going to look at that? So that we know if it's not working, we can go back and we can put in a different. So we know what the outcome is. We know what we're trying to achieve. We know the need that we're trying to meet. So maybe if the strategy or the action isn't working, can we change it? Would it be the same person, or are we going to go with somebody else? So that's why these areas are all important. Now, partners to the plan should list everyone who attends and contributes to the meeting. Okay? So that's the young person, carers, parents, professionals. Ensure the contact details are in here. So ensure before you leave the child's plan meeting that they are taking the emails and the contact details for everyone. So ensure that the young person's view is given as well, even whether they attended the meeting or not. And like we said earlier, there are different ways for them to be able to do that. So everyone who's been there should be there. So after the meeting, the child's plan should be sent to the parent. They should ascertain the young person's views. So after the meeting, once the lead professionals updated the document, they should send it to the parent before it's finalised. The views listed in here that were agreed at the action plan. So whether the child and the parent attended the child plan meeting or not, this should still be done after the child's plan meeting, because you've got time to process things. You're not caught in the headlights sitting there with the professionals deciding what actions are going to take place, and you find yourself agreeing to things and the child doesn't want to speak up because the adults in the room all seem to think this is a good thing, even though the child thinks they won't manage it. So this is about after. So we say here, often young people will agree to things in a meeting due to the pressure of the professionals and the atmosphere of the meeting. But once they're in their safe space and at home, they might say, that's never going to work. This isn't right for me. Or I really like this, or this is right for me, but I don't know if I can work with that person. You know, the person who's been named as taking the action forward, further up here in this bit, by whom or by when. The time frame isn't quite right. So the child has a chance to open up about these things, reflect, process, open up about them and put their views in. And the parent also has a chance to reflect, process what is going on and put their views in. Okay? Any disagreements within the plan, so anything that was disagreed in while you were in the meeting should be noted here. So if the parent and the child do speak up in the meeting and say, oh, I don't think that would work, I don't like the way we've been spoken to, I don't like anything at all, then add it in here. The lead professional should have noted anything, like we say, that happened during the meeting, but if it wasn't noted, you can add it in here. And alternatives for the outcomes and potential difficulties. So if the young person has said, or the parents have said, or a professional has said they don't know if this is going to work, then they have to think of, well, if it doesn't work, What else can we suggest? And that's kind of like what I said about the young person reflecting and perhaps saying that the action might work, but they might, with the person who has been put in place for that, that might not be a good match. So in here, you can contingency plan around actions or who's taking things forward or the time scaling or the outcomes themselves if they've been misunderstood. So you can reflect back on all of this part here, all of the actions that have been put into place. Okay, and everything should be stated there. It's in the contingency part. It's highly unlikely that you're going to have a coordinated support plan, and so we're going to leave it here for the child's plan. If there's anything else you don't understand, you can speak to your family support worker or contact Thriving Families about this. But this is me talking you through how a child's plan document should be compiled and how a review should take place. So you do get that period thereafter to gather your thoughts, process information, and get your views down and return this document to the school, after which point a final document should be sent to you. So the parent and carer of the child should hold the final document, whether it's a new document or a reviewed document. You should hold the final document, post-meeting document, at home in your files. And you should have it electronically so that you can share it, and you should perhaps ask for a paper copy as well if you don't have any way of printing it off for your own notes. Okay, I hope this is helpful.